Hi, this is Chloe Sears, and this is my alternative assignment for Module 5, in which we read the essay Rousseau and Locke and watched the two videos, the first on Frederick Douglass and the second on the scientific revolution. Now, based on all the philosophers that we've studied so far, I would say that Rousseau's ideas are definitely my favorite. Because I definitely relate to that idea of wanting to connect feeling and letting it guide you more than this idea of taking foundational knowledge and helping that guide your development of consciousness, because I definitely think for myself individually it's a lot more based on my individual feelings on how I answer these questions and how I interpret things based on my own emotions and stuff like that. So I really liked his ideas that were presented within the essay especially. Um, I think that, like all of the other philosophers that we have studied, this idea of freedom from church is becoming more foundational, and this idea that superstition does not control life anymore. Similar to what was presented in the second video about the scientific revolution, where individuals were starting to focus more on this idea of the individual self, like we saw in past ideas as we come more towards modern philosophy, this idea of being able to think separately from the church and not necessarily taking every single idea that was presented without having a sense of doubt or having a sense of skepticism. I definitely think that within the essay, I was confused initially about the idea of skepticism. With the idea of skepticism being a belief that there may be some sort of absolute truth, but there's no way for humans to grasp these truths. I was a little bit confused on this idea, but was able to come to a conclusion later on when there was an idea presented by Locke. The idea that you cannot make distinctions based simply on innate ideas and material is experience. I think that this idea that he presented about not just utilizing innate ideas made skepticism a little bit more clear, because it's saying that you can't just take what people are saying. There's no way to make sure that that is absolutely the truth, that those innate ideas that you have within yourself are absolutely correct. There's no way to validate that, so you have to be skeptical of those ideas, and you have to have this sense of you have to have that sense of questioning, like we see within a lot of philosophy. And I think that was Locke's idea, was presenting the idea of you can't just take innate ideas and move on, is that it's a sense of you need to be skeptical of those ideas. And I think that those two ideas of skepticism, as well as not necessarily agreeing with innate ideas and seeing material and what you can actually physically see more as experience, I think that those two things relate for sure. I definitely think that I would really, really enjoy having a conversation with Rousseau and getting to hear all his really interesting things about life, because we have very similar ways of thinking, mostly related to how he finds nature to be really, really powerful, and how powerful emotion and feeling can be in developing a consciousness. I think that in relation to nature, he definitely highlighted some things that I feel are completely true for myself. I know that I had a positive emotional response when he was saying that the most, that humans are in a natural state. People are able to live more simply and in harmony with themselves. I definitely agree with that. And the reason why I think I had an emotional response is because I'm definitely the type of person who likes to get away from the real world and go out into nature and be able to kind of more center myself within that space, because I don't have all of the distractions of the things around me and all the other people within my life telling me all these different ideas and me having to interpret those in regards to my own development of consciousness. I think that it just allows for a sense of serenity and allows for that idea of, I'm here, I'm connecting to the natural world, and I'm able to take every single distraction away from me and just focus on developing my answering towards these questions, so that I'm able to develop a sense of wisdom as well as develop a sense of self and consciousness. So I think that would make a conversation with Rousseau really, really interesting. I also think that a thing that with Rousseau that would be really interesting, what he presented, again, had another emotional response with this idea that humans are naturally good. And I really appreciated that, because I was really not feeling Hobbes' idea that humans are just bad and we're inherently just not good individuals. I definitely liked Rousseau's ideas better. Mainly, I think I had this positive reaction because society makes us definitely focus on the negative aspects of ourselves, and it's really it's really good to remember that we are inherently good individuals, and awareness of goodness stems from feelings more than reason. So I think that that's like really important to acknowledge, is that your feelings allow you to see as an individual that you are capable, that you are good, that you aren't a bad person. And I think for me that's really helpful sometimes, is just being able to acknowledge that maybe I didn't make the correct decision within a situation, but that doesn't make me a bad individual, because I'm a naturally good person and my feelings are guiding me towards making decisions. I thought that was really interesting within the essay, and I definitely related to his idea on that. Another thing that was presented within the essay was this idea, Rousseau's idea, that you need to allow children to flourish within an educational setting, because education is the most important way and key to equality, is to allow for everybody to have an education. And I thought that this idea of allowing children to flourish was really, really important. And I like to relate it to this idea of how you write a paragraph within high school versus how you write a paragraph within college. In high school, you got this really static of, I have a thesis statement in my introduction, I have 3 body paragraphs, and then I have my one concluding paragraph. And it's more based on, oh, did I get all the steps right? Whereas in college, at least I've found that it's a lot more based on what type of analysis that you're finding, and it's not based on that static idea of that, like, you have to do it this way because that's the correct way to do it. And I think that example relates to his idea that you need to allow children to flourish in their own way. And you can even see it within this class, is this me being able to make a video rather than write an essay, because it works better for me and it's allowing me to develop my sense of education in philosophy in a more beneficial way to myself, rather than just being like, there is one way to do it and this is the correct way. So I thought that was really interesting to be presented within the essay, because I didn't really think about that as a portion of Rousseau's ideas. But now that I think about it, it's kind of this idea that you don't need to accept exactly what they say as correct. It's more that there's an interpretation that goes along a broad scale, which is, I think, really similar to the ideas presented within philosophy, because everybody can interpret things in their own way based on their own feelings, rather than just based off the knowledge and the facts that they're given. Let's see. Another idea that I thought was really interesting that was presented within the essay, going back to this idea of innate versus learned and stuff like that, is the innate babies. And I didn't really have an opinion on it, but as I went back, I think that it comes from impressions combining this idea that it comes from an impression combining with ideas within yourself already. Because I don't know, I just think that me as an individual, when I'm making an impression of a person, it's based off of ideas that I already have within my mind, like, oh, that person looks this way, and then I think of, oh, this idea that I already had within myself, rather than my impression making me think about ideas. And I know it may not be the same for babies, because they don't have a same sense of developed consciousness, but I think that it more broadly goes with that idea of an impression combines with ideas that you already have. That probably didn't make a lot of sense, but it was going back to that idea of talking about innateness within babies. And then the last thing that I really want to focus on was how the Frederick Douglass video related to a lot of Locke's government ideas within the social contract. This idea that we have to give up freedom in return, that we give up freedom in return for protection from the government. Now, I thought that was really interesting, because we know within our country that wasn't true for a very, very long time. But that idea of slavery and how people were totally marginalized as a whole entire population, and continue to be, as we see today, with people finally starting to rise up about these ideas. I think that it's really interesting that Locke presented these ideas so far in advance, and now within the Frederick Douglass video, we were able to see that he was not protected by the government. He was not, he gave up his freedom because he didn't have a choice. And I don't know, I just thought it was really interesting, because these ideas were presented so far in advance before that. You think that people would learn, at least within our society, because we were based so much on this idea of philosophy. We're a philosophical country, that we would have thought and looked back more on these ideas and how we were able to work as a nation within having a social contract, rather than just marginalizing these people based off of very, very little information. I just thought it was really interesting because I saw that relation between Locke's ideas about government and how it really didn't relate to what was presented within the United States for a very long time, because we marginalized so many people for such a long time. Anyways, thank you for listening to my ideas.